Welcome, folks. Hope you're having a great time at the conference so far. Hopefully have some more fun ahead of us today. I'd like to share some insights with you, hopefully some practical tools, really, and we'll try to keep this as interactive as possible as we can on this forum. So let me just take you back a little bit, back to your kind of old school days, maybe even back in school when you used to be playing sports. So hopefully I didn't blow anybody's ears off there, but what does that remind you of, right? Back on that playing field, remember our coaches and stuff, and sometimes we have mixed feelings about our old little league coaches or even our high school coaches. Some of you maybe even played college sports. But if you could think about the most inspiring coach that you've ever had, they've probably inspired you to be the best that you could be, even better than you thought you could be. In other words, inspiring coaches generally see something in their players, in their team members, in their colleagues that they don't even see themselves. They see the unseen so that people can perform what they thought they couldn't perform in the past. So reflect for a minute on who that was and what was it about that coach that really made, did they kind of push you a little further? Did they have more confidence in you that you didn't have in yourself? Did they help you build skills? Were they more patient with you? Did they show you more grace when you kind of goofed up and stuff? But all those are kind of the things we'll talk about a little bit later on. I just wanted to kind of think about that role of a coach, because we think about coaching kind of on the field, and it's really just kind of coming into the workforce more over the past decade or so. It's really a very similar dynamic, as you'll soon see. And we believe that the central role of a leader is that of a coach. And just like a boat gives off, it's coming around summertime now, think about going out on a lake, and a boat gives off a nice kind of two-sided wake, right? You're sitting on the back of the boat by that motor, you could see it like spreading like that. And as a coach, we give off that same kind of wake of the relationships and the results that we get. So really inspiring coaches are about not either or, not just driving, getting results, and not just, hey, we're having a party, let's have a great time together, we'll be good friends. It's about both. So I want you to ask yourself kind of what kind of wake are you leaving with your team? Are you leaving inspiring results and inspiring relationships? Hopefully you are, but hopefully after today, we can kind of give you some tips and tools to elevate your game and even a more positive wake on both sides for you and your team. So I want to talk a little bit about what we call a knowing-doing gap. Interesting research here by Korn Ferry found that most people rate coaching and developing others as a competency is one of the top 3 most important leadership competencies. We would probably all agree. The top 3, right? However, it's also the least practiced competency. So here we are saying, yeah, we know it's important, but when it gets push comes to shove, we really don't do it. The least of like 10 or 20 competencies practiced. So why do we think this knowing-doing gap exists? A few reasons as we ask leaders. I call them excuses, they call them reasons. One is a lack of time. They said, I'm just too busy for that. And I was just, well, you either invest time now, now or later. So another reason is that we don't have a proven process to coach. And I get that, because sometimes it's like, well, I know I need to do it, but I don't even know. So I just take this kind of haphazard approach. And with haphazard approaches, we get haphazard results. The last was that we want to kind of take care of our immediate performance. So like if we stop and coach somebody, it's like,
Hey, Lee, I'm going to step in real quick. I don't know if if something happened or whatnot, but I think we're missing some audio here. We want to have maybe some technical difficulties on your side.
Okay. How's this?
There you go. Gotcha.
Okay. Let me just rephrase that last thing. Thanks for catching that. I saw the notes in there. Sorry about that.
Yep.
So I got all excited. I think when I gestured, I may have hit the mute button. Sorry, guys. So leadership coaching is the ultimate pay me now or pay me later leadership proposition, right? We either invest in our team now or we invest later. We get bigger returns now. It's just like putting money in the bank now. We get that power of time. But let me give you a little bit more history of kind of what coaching looks like before we talk about the power of positive coaching, specifically positive coaching. So over the past decade or so, we've had kind of this paradigm shift where years past, coaching, it used to be kind of like a scarlet A. We'd have clients go, Lee, that guy over there, he's got a coach, And so it was almost like, oh, he's sick, you don't talk about it. Now it's become a badge of honor. We'll go and coach clients like, hey, can we get a coach also? So it's really shifted. And today's business leaders have really realized what professional athletes have known for years, that having a coach elevates your performance. I don't care if you're good old Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods, any of the great performers, Michael Phelps, they all have coaches. They know that elevates their performance. For some reason in the business world, we've been kind of lagging in realizing that. So unfortunately though, let me just share one example of this to you. And I just experienced this all real time. I love to do this like title boxing thing, it's just a workout, right? So I know sometimes I'm like knocked out. Well, no pun very intended, but I'm like really bushed. So about halfway through, I start kind of doing this and this, and we're supposed to be killing that bag. And all of a sudden, like the instructor turns the corner and looks at me, and man, I'm going at it, right? And so when that coach is looking at me and keeping me accountable, I'm performing at a higher level. That's the simple social phenomena called social facilitation. In other words, just by someone watching you, a coach, you're going to elevate your performance. So imagine if a coach really has a vested interest in giving you feedback and helping you through the tough times and preparing well mentally and physically. Imagine the improvements improvements we can get. So unfortunately, though, very few organizations have the luxury of using external coaches for all their leaders. We know that. So we developed this model I want to share with you to kind of help businesses elevate their coaching game. So in other words, the leaders can become great coaches so they can build this internal competency and create a culture of coaching. I was going to say a coaching culture, and I switched it, a culture of coaching. So I'm going to just share this, this model with you real quick. So you can see here, your positive coaching mindset times your positive coaching habits equals winning results and relationships. Right? So bottom line is we've got to get our mind right before we can get our team right. We've got to get the right mindset, no different than any relationship, not just coaching, right? Are we, if I go into with my spouse or a loved one or a workmate, and I'm thinking, man, they just don't get it, or I don't know about this, or they're always a pain to work with. If I go in with that mindset, those are kind of the results I'm going to get, right? It's going to tank that. So we have to have a positive coaching mindset and then bring positive coaching habits to the table. And it all starts from the inside. We say coaching and leadership is an inside job. Let me just illustrate it this way. Let me ask you, okay, who am I right now? I'm Batman, baby. All right. I love Batman. I loved Batman when I was a kid, starting when I was 7 years old. I had a Batman Christmas. Everything I got was Batman. I got a Bat cave and a Bat cape and a Bat car and a Bat mask. Oh, it was all so cool. But what's so cool about Batman is his backstory. And if you know the backstory of Batman, you should if you don't, is that his parents were murdered right in front of him when he was young. So he grew up having this great sense of justice and revenge. And then he took those emotions and he channeled them toward creating a sense of justice in Gotham, right? So what makes Batman is less of his accessories and all of his stuff around him, right? It's really his actions. And that's the point I want to make. Regardless of your title, or the kind of car you drive, or your parking spot, or the kind of office you have, it doesn't matter. People follow our actions, not our accessories. So much of leadership, people talk about the outward stuff about, oh, you got to set direction and you got to create a great vision and all that. That's all important, but leadership starts on the inside. What kind of character do we have? What are our motives? Are we about serving others? Those are the kind of things that are really, really important. So let me shift to to talking a little bit about the power of positivity. Again, this is the power of positive coaching. Let me just share a quick study I thought was really compelling. Korn Ferry found that 65% of female CEOs of large companies, not just small companies, like large companies, 65% of female CEOs of large companies realized they could be a CEO only after someone told them, hi, Janice, you could become a CEO, until their boss said, you have that capability. They set that expectation. They broke kind of the ceiling. So if you think about that, it has great implications as a coach. So you and those you coach will kind of rise to the level of your expectations. So we have to have those positive expectations. So our mindset really predisposes us, right, to kind of see the kind of behaviors that reinforce our mindset. It's kind of this reinforcing cycle. So I hate to say this, but like think politics, right? So we have a certain mindset, whatever your political position is, and then we tend to see things and seek things to reinforce that particular mindset. So it's really important as a coach to kind of help people break out of that mindset, have a positive, open mindset. So with that, I want to share this particular slide with you and ask, have you ever said any of these things on the right-hand side? So we have a positive mindset and a negative mindset. Right. And if you're familiar with Carol Dweck's work on the growth mindset, the left-hand side could be seen as the growth mindset, and the right-hand side could also be seen as the fixed mindset. So if you have these messages that you're saying these things to yourself on the right-hand side, you can imagine the kind of results that you're going to get, whether you're coaching yourself or somebody else. But think about this, just forget about coaching others right now. Think about saying these things to yourself. We find this many times. We know the most important conversation people have is the one with yourself, right? And so we'll see people say things to themselves that they would never say to their best friend. So we need to make sure that we're keeping a positive mindset for our own self so we can be the best we could be and grow, but also making sure we're having that positive mindset for the people that we're coaching. Even if it's someone who's struggling and we're frustrated with, we need to bring that right mindset to the table. So there are findings from a woman named Barbara Friedrichsen in the field of positive psychology that reveal that our brains respond to negative emotions by limiting kind of the options to consider. So let me just give you some examples here. Think about a time you've been in conflict with a colleague and you're just really angry, or you're frustrated, or maybe even a loved one. And that anger and frustration can consume you. You could almost feel your peripheral vision kind of coming in like this, right? Like, okay, the possibility is like I'm getting very focused. Well, we know this is actually adaptive from years ago. I'm talking about many years ago, evolutionarily speaking. When we had to kind of fend ourselves away from saber-toothed tigers. Like when there was a tiger running after us, we had one thing and one thing only. It was survival. Like all options going, boom, I am running and I'm climbing up a tree or something, right? We don't have tigers to run away from now, but there are plenty of other fears, some that we can't even see, like coronavirus, right? But just fears in our life. But the fact is, negative emotions prevent our brain from seeing all the options and choices around you. But positivity broadens possibilities. This is the very interesting part of the research. And this has big implications for coaches. So the more positive we are with someone, I'm not saying to be Pollyanna, but focusing on the positive, we tend to broaden the opportunities for growth and the things that we can see. Plus the employees kind of being better equipped to solve problems and expand his or her capabilities by looking at all these options. So one piece of research that's very compelling that reinforces this shows that strength-based coaching, in other words, I focus on your strength and your natural gifts and try to exploit those in a positive way so you could flourish and help the organization. That kind of coaching increases performance 36%. On the other hand, weakness-based coaching, which we have in most companies' performance appraisals, what are the 3 weaknesses Lee needs to work on? What are his action plans to improve them? Weakness-based coaching yields a 26% decrease in improvement. So you're talking about from the midline, 36% up or 26% down. That's a 60+% gap in performance just by focusing on people's strengths and natural gifts.
Hey, Lee, we got a question that
Sure.
came in that I think may fit right here as well.
Great.
Is there, in your eyes, is there a difference between a coach versus a mentor?
Yeah, I would say so. I think a mentor is someone that you might see more periodically that's kind of helping you along with your career. I think a coach is more and really is synonymous with your leader, your boss. Our goal here is to turn the leader also into a great coach. And there's much more day-to-day interaction with much more feedback, much more opportunities to observe. So it's absolutely appropriate for you to have a coach in the organization. We hope it's your leader, right? And also have a mentor or two. There are mentors that could kind of come and go in different phases of your life. But I think it's really distinguished by, I think, the frequency of interaction and their involvement in your day-to-day work.
Awesome.
Good question, good distinction. So let's talk a little bit about, we talked about having a positive coaching mindset and then positive coaching habits. Let's focus on the mindset side right now. And you have to have 4 levels of awareness. And listen, we know the greatest knowledge is self-knowledge, right? So we need deep awareness in these 4 areas to enable us to kind of be the best coach that we can be, and then also enable us to enhance the 5 coaching habits that we'll talk about in a little bit. So we have your thoughts, your purpose, your values, and your emotions. So let me just ask you guys to jump into the text box here and say, which one of these do you think is the biggest challenge for you to kind of manage personally to make sure you're bringing a positive mindset to the table. Your thoughts, your sense of purpose, your clear values, or management of your emotions. Which one's the biggest challenge for you guys? I see emotions and thoughts. Lots of emotions and thoughts are seen. All right, we've got a purpose in there. All right, good. Thoughts, emotions. Okay, not surprising. Listen, our thoughts kind of create our world, really, right? So, and our emotions are really kind of part, and in some ways, part of that, intertwined with that. So, appreciate that. Thanks for your quick feedback. So let's take one of these at a time. Let me just kind of give you a quick overview of them. Okay, if you think about kind of the coaching game and the game of leadership and the game of life is a game of inches. 6 inches to be precise. The 6 inches between our ears, right? Our thought life dictates so much of what happens in the rest of our life. And the human brain, this little thing right here, hopefully most of ours are bigger than this, but this little squishy brain here, all right, is the most complex object known to man or woman, that's for sure. It has 100 billion neurons, billion with a B. If you're old enough, you remember a guy named Carl Sagan, billions and billions, right? 100 billion neurons in our brain. And each of those neurons is connected to 10,000 other neurons. Unbelievable. Talk about a web, right? The most complex set of connections ever. And the synapses are the spaces, the little spaces between each neuron. And these impulses travel between the synapses, and they create kind of this, we call a neural network, these impulses that jump from one synapse to another, one neuron to another. And synapses kind of allow growth and kind of reconnection. And it's interesting because the field of neuroscience for a long time thought that our brains were fixed, right? And just recently they realized that our brains was called neuroplastic. In other words, we can rewire our brain just over the last, with new imaging techniques and stuff, just over the past decade. That's very powerful to know that. No matter how old we are or set in our habits, the fact is we can rewire our brains the way we think, the way we act, the way we perform. So the fact is thoughts that fire together ultimately get wired together. So we might say, gosh, I have to go do this presentation. Oh, I hate presenting. I don't want to do that, right? So then how do you think your presentation is going to go if you have that mindset going in, right? So we can start rewiring our thinking, say, okay, I know I've practiced a lot. This is going to go well. I've got everything planned out. I'm excited about this. We start rewiring that over time. We start getting excited about giving our next presentation when most people would rather, die than give a presentation. Actually, stats will actually show you that the fear of death is higher is actually below the fear of speaking in public. So we can really rewire our thoughts together. Very powerful. So it's not only critical for a kind of a coach to embrace this kind of growth mindset, but also to embrace the fact that we can grow our minds. So just a little bit on thoughts there, but let me just illustrate that for you real quickly. But let me just ask by asking you this question. Right now, I just want you to do one thing, because we've learned that it's really hard for our brain to process negative statements. So right now, I want you guys to just listen to what I'm saying. Do not, no matter what you do not think of a pink elephant right now. Do not think of a pink elephant, okay? So I'm guessing, I'm not even gonna have you put it in the text box, but I know what most of you are thinking about, right? It's human nature. The word not kind of gets canceled out. I laugh about it when I see, public pools, no swimming, no jumping, no fun, no, all these no's. And what do you see? Kids running and jumping and all that kind of stuff, right? It's really hard. It's not about them being kids. It's about us being humans. It's hard for us to process a negative. So that's why it's important to think about positives and what we want to move toward versus what we want to avoid. So if I'm trying to replace a habit, don't say, oh, I want to stop eating junk food. We'll say, you know what? I'm going to start eating healthier food and healthier options. Our brain can process that better, and we're moving towards something. All right. So let me just illustrate that one another way here. So we call this the yellow car phenomenon. So you're looking at a yellow car right now. And if I were to ask you, when's the last time you guys saw a yellow car? You might say, oh, maybe I saw one last week or, last month. Or if you're calling in from the New York area, no fair, you maybe see 1,000 yellow taxi cabs. But regardless of when you saw a yellow car last, now that I've heightened your awareness of yellow cars, you're going to see more of them. You're going to leave here today. You might go out, take a walk, take a drive, go out to dinner tonight. And you're gonna say, oh my gosh, I'm pretty sure, Detroit just offloaded all these extra yellow cars that weren't here last week. You will see them, trust me. This is nothing more than your reticular activating system, which brings things from your subconscious mind to your conscious mind. So as we have desired behaviors and preferred positive behaviors, the more we could state those as what we want from our subconscious mind or conscious mind, we'll see opportunities to engage in those behaviors. One other thing to think about is as we manage our thought life, is to create mental space. We live in a busy world, even when we're working at home, we're busy and busy and busy. And many times we don't have really time to think. And we know from like the age of, I think it's 9 or pretty young, we could start thinking about the process of thinking. We're aware of our own thoughts. When we first moved into this a new house a while back, my daughter was young. She got her own new room, and she had this area with a white furry carpet and a pink furry chair in it. And she called it her Chillax Zone, where she could chill and relax. And I'm thinking, Lexi, you don't need to chill and relax. I need to chill and relax. But the fact is, it was great. She had this place where she could just be alone with her own thoughts. We all need to find our own Chillax Zone. It might be after work, we log off and we go take a walk in nature. Or at lunch, we make sure we take a walk somewhere. In the morning, we have a morning time, or a prayer, or a meditation, or a reflection, or a gratitude time, right? It could be, whatever it could be your time in the shower, but preferably not while you're doing something else. Sometime where you're like, I'm thinking about planning my day. I'm thinking about getting in the right mindset to coach this person, to attack this new project, to engage in this new relationship. We have to have time to reflect and think about and adjust our thinking and our mindset to ensure it's going to get us the best results. Okay. So just a couple things on thoughts. Let's move on to purpose. I'm going to cover this one real quickly here. This just reminds me of a t-shirts that my son's football coach, when they played football in high school, used to have. Big team and a little bitty me. And his whole idea was that the team's needs come before yours, before your own. And here, as a servant leader and one who's really willing to coach, we have to understand that the needs of my team come before me. It's not about the number of people that are serving you. It's about the number of people that you're serving, right? So just keeping that mindset about your purpose and how you're trying to make a difference in people's lives. So, think about like, what's in the best interest of my team versus, am I uncomfortable with this? Because we see this a lot. People have a coaching opportunity and they'll say, it makes it a little uncomfortable. I kind of want to push it off, push it under the rug. All right. Well, that's basically saying your own comfort is coming before the needs of the team or that employee. So it's not about your comfort. It's about what's in the best interest of that particular employee. And if your relationship is based in trust, you ought to be able to have some of those tough conversations. And we're going to talk about the habits that help you do that in just a little bit. But keeping your purpose in mind of why am I here as a coach and a leader is really critical. Okay. So the next is to think about your values. So these are just some foundational values here. All right. Integrity, humility, and caring, and it all starts with integrity. If you don't have integrity, people aren't following you. And guess what? If no one's following you, you're not really leading, right? So we have to have integrity. And that's why I talked about leadership's an inside job first. Do we have a good say-do ratio? Do we do most of the things that I say I'm going to do? Do I just throw words and promises out? All kinds of things about our personal reliability and integrity are really important. Not to mention our humility. Again, humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less and thinking of others more, right? And caring, and particularly caring, this foundational value has been elevated over the past year or so of knowing that, listen, I've got to see the person behind the employee. I've got to really have a genuine vested interest in their well-being, not just in their performance. So this is really these three kind of foundational values kind of can build a strong foundation for your team. So just as an example, like when I was a leader, I had these 3 F's. They were really clear. I would go into a team, they would know what I was all about. I was focused, fair, and fun. They knew that. And I would say, and because I'm focused, fair, and fun, this is what I expect from you. And this is what you could expect from me. There was mutual accountability. So I actually filled out a form. Because I'm focused, I expect these things, and these are the behaviors you could see from me, and all the way on down, fair and fun. So I encourage you to do that as a leader. Am I really clear in articulating my core values? So when I go into a team, we don't have to kind of do the dance. They kind of know what I'm all about. And that way it also enables you to make kind of values-based decisions when you're not like in the heat of the moment and say, guys, our team's all about integrity here. So let's make sure we goofed up with that client engagement. Let's just tell them and own it and fix it, right? Let's not try to hide stuff and all that kind of things, right? So our values enable us. It's nice to have values, but they really get legs when you start making values-based decisions, okay? So let's move on to the fourth level of awareness.
Hey, Lee.
Yeah, sure, Max.
Daniel posted in the chat, and I thought it was kind of interesting. You might want to speak on. He just basically wrote, "Thinking about thinking equals metacognition in psychology," right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's very, very meta commenting. You're right. Yeah. So it's really about, we have how our brain works, and then we have how we think about our brain works, right? So it's when we think about our own assumptions or how I did or how my thinking is either helping me or hurting me. So it's exactly right. And it's really an advanced level of awareness, but it's really critical if we want to bring the right mindset to the table. So yeah, good point, Daniel. You're probably way more advanced on this than I am. So thanks, Max. Appreciate it. So let's touch on the last component here, which is our emotions. All right. And so we have this respond versus react here. So if you think about early responders, it's like firemen and policemen, right? They're called first responders, right? They're not called first reactors. So many times we kind of react to an emotion versus respond to it. So unlike rats, so if you think about, well, let's not use rats, that's kind of gross. Let's use dogs. I have our old dog, Sparky's not with us anymore, but Sparky loved cheese, right? So if Sparky was here and he saw cheese, there was no thinking involved. Boom, it was stimulus response. It was just cheese, baby. In fact, after a while, we had to stop using the word cheese. We had to say fromage in French, so he wouldn't understand us. He was a pretty smart dog. He picked up on that. He started learning French after a while too. But there's no choice in the middle, but as human beings, we have that choice, stimulus, and in the middle is choice, response. So I could see food and I can make a choice. Am I hungry? Do I like that food? And then I can eat it. And it's the same thing. My boss could say something to me and say, "You've got this deadline by 5 o'clock today." And I could say, okay. I could choose to say, okay, I'm going to react to that and make sure I take care of my boss. I could say, you know what? I've got to seek some understanding, like find out what went wrong, what's going on, what exactly does he expect from me? I don't want to, there's no degrees of freedom here. I want to make sure I get it right. We could choose how we react. Many people give up their opportunity to have choice in the middle. They think, oh, my boss just told me to do this, or I have to do this, or I have to do that. Well, let me say, if you just change the word have to get to, it changes things completely. Very few things we have to do in life. So do I have to take out the garbage today? Yeah, I probably do. But if I reframe it in my mind and say, I get to, now I'm like, okay, that reframes things for me. I get to, I have a family. We generate trash. That's a great blessing. I get to bring that trash out. So we have that choice in the middle that we need to make sure to manage our emotions. We want to make sure that we're engaging in that choice and not just giving it up and acting kind of just stimulus response, right? So we also, when we think about managing our emotions, we want to we use this phrase called, you have to name it to tame it. So sometimes people get so frustrated and stuff, they're like, oh, they just get all tangled up. Well, if once you name it, then you can kind of manage it. So why am I feeling frustrated? Oh, gee, I really wanted to get this done. And with this new set of priorities, I don't know that I'm going to be able to get it done. That really frustrates me. Or I really wanted this. So usually it's some form of frustration, but really understanding why we're feeling that way. Gee, I felt insecure about this when I was young. I didn't have a college degree. And now I feel like I have to really prove myself extra because I don't have a degree and I'm around people that have degrees. Those are important things to understand so we can manage them constructively. But one of the most practical things that we use to kind of manage our emotions is very simply the rule of 5. So it just goes like this. If something's not going to matter that much in 5 years, don't spend more than 5 minutes worrying about it. It's a great perspective setter because many times we get caught up in the trivial stuff like, oh yeah, this and that. And in the moment it seems huge. So take a minute and respond. Don't react. Breathe. By the way, a deep inhale and exhale is a great way to kind of help manage our emotions. Breathe, get out of the moment for a minute and just say, you know what? Is that really going to matter? Probably not. Let me spend 5 minutes on it, do the best I can, work something out, and move on to bigger things. Okay. So that rule of 5 is really helpful, we find, in kind of managing our emotions. So just a few things on each of those areas of your thoughts, your purpose, your values, and emotions. We want to have a good level of awareness around those so that we could bring our best mindset to the table so that we can then apply the coaching habits that we'll talk about now. All right. So here's what they are. Very simple. And it's not necessarily easy, but simple. And most of these things are simple because we understand the science of the people. We understand psychology, but we understand the science of our brains. We understand organizational dynamics. So if you really understand people and really study people, you could really uncomplicate your life as a leader and a coach a lot, or even just as a colleague, right? So it's these simple things: explain, ask, involve, measure, and appreciate, right? That's it, right? And you can see the results on the right-hand side. When we explain, we get alignment. When we ask, we get engagement, right? So the left-hand side, these habits are the side of choice. You choose those every day. If you do those every day with your team, there's no scripts involved or anything. We'll talk about some of the quick tools. If you do those things every day, you're going to get the results on the right-hand side. And I know you all want those results on the right-hand side for your team. If you don't do those, you get what we call salt and pepper coaching, right? Oh, you know what? I'll explain a little bit today, but I'm just busy. I can't do that. Or, I'm not going to ask questions right now because we're busy. I don't have time to appreciate them. We got to go on to the next project. We call it salt and pepper coaching. I'm telling you, these behaviors, these habits on the left-hand side predictably produce the outcomes on the right-hand side. So if you're consistent with it, you'll get a consistent result. If not, you won't, right? And it's really your kind of coaching credibility. You might say, yeah, I'm busy, or it's too awkward. And if we don't address issues, if we start ignoring issues, we put our own credibility at risk. We could say, you know what, I just wish that issue would go away. I'm just going to bury my head in the sand. Well, you know what happens when we bury our heads in the sand, right? You see what's showing. It's not a pretty picture, right? So the fact is, Stephen Covey has this great quote from his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, years ago, that says, unexpressed emotions don't go away. They just rear their heads in uglier ways, right? The corollary here for a coach is that unexpressed performance issues don't go away. They just rear their heads in uglier ways. So we want to make sure that we're addressing those issues, right? So let's go ahead and talk through each of these kind of before we do that, let me go back here real quick, get a quick text response and ask you, which of these 5 positive coaching habits do you have the most challenge with? Just be curious to see that. Just pop it in the text box. Let's just see what kind of comes up here. Explain, ask, involve, measure, appreciate. Which one's the biggest challenge for you? Measure, not unusual. Ask, that's a good one. Ask is very powerful. Measure, not surprising, seeing lots of measures and a few asks. Okay, very good. All right, measure. Wow, almost exclusively measure and ask. Okay, measurement's tough. It does take time to do. We'll talk about some simple ways around that. But I'll tell you, asking is a very powerful, most underutilized leadership tool. The easiest is appreciate. Good for you. That's an important one. That's a very powerful one. All right, thanks for your input, guys. Appreciate that. Involve, I see here. Great. All right, so let's talk about it one at a time right here. Let's go to and talk about explaining. So a simple way to explain right here. We call these the fundamental 4. It's based on research, a 50-year meta-analysis of employee attitude research and climate studies found that the single lowest scoring area among 50 years of published studies was communication, lack of communication, right? Not too surprising. We would probably all guess that. But if you do a factor analysis on those results, you find that these fundamental 4 questions are what people are always asking, whether or not you hear them. That's the key. So you have to be diligent about answering these questions. Where are we going? What are we doing to get there? How can I contribute? And what's in it for me? And what's in it for me is not just about financial rewards. It's psychological rewards, emotional rewards, social, professional. Do I get to grow? Do I get to be part of a winning team? Do I get to expand my skills? In addition to just the financial rewards. So these fundamental 4 are really critical. So our best communicating clients use this as a template for all their formal and informal communications with their employees. Whether they've heard the answers or not, they answer every one of these employees, because I'll tell you, whether or not you hear them, your team is asking these questions, okay? So it's a great way to make sure you're aligning on expectations. And what happens if you don't answer these questions, people fall into what's called the silence spiral, where silence leads to doubt, leads to fear, leads to panic, leads to worst case thinking. We see this all the time. Maybe a boss is in a hurry going down the hallway, going to a lunch. Back in the days, we were back in the office, right? And I'll get a call, people, oh my gosh, my boss just walked right past me. I wonder what's happening. I think I'm on the bubble. Are we going to be sold? And it's amazing. Our natural human insecurity sends us into the silent spiral. So as a leader, we really have to be very proactive and diligently answer these fundamental 4 questions, because formal channels of communication are much slower than informal channels around the water cooler, around our chat, around our whatever we're doing. Slack, doesn't matter, right? It's much quicker that way. So make sure you're avoiding kind of that silent spiral. One simple thing we use to just align on expectations, we call the 3 W's. So what, who, and when. So whether I come out of a meeting or I just quickly interact with somebody. Okay, Max, what are you going to do? Who's, by when? And that's it. I'm going to do this by then. 3 W's, who, what, and when. So I experienced this firsthand a while back. I was asked to speak at the Inc. Leadership Conference out in San Diego. And I told my wife, she goes, oh, that's great. Our son Cameron will go with you. I said, that's great. He can watch me speak. Then we'll tool around San Diego for a bit. So she told Cameron, they had a chat about it. And Cameron's like, oh, Dad's speaking at the Inc. Conference? And she's like, yeah. She's like, why is that? And she's like, oh, I didn't think that was his audience. She's like, yeah, it's some small businesses, So they were kind of going back and forth, and he was a sharp kid. He knew our business. He was in high school at this point. And so we're kind of confused going back and forth. And she's like, and he's a very grateful kid. He was excited to go, but still seemed confused. Well, it wasn't until about 10 minutes later they were chatting that she didn't realize that Cameron thought I was speaking at the Inc. conference, right? Not the Inc. conference. Not that they can't benefit from this message. But my point here is just his assumptions and experiences and all that came to the table, and hers. And so they just went like this. So the art of communication is really an art. It's not a science. So we need to make sure we're extra clear in our communication. Picture now, we're doing text, we're doing Slack, we're doing Zoom. All right, we need to make sure we're really clear with people and syncing up. Because so simply taking that mental, I use it as a mental template, the 3 W's, what, who, and when, helps me kind of make sure we clarify and make sure we're not out of sync as we move forward. So that's explained. Let's move on to the second habit, which is ask. And when you ask, you engage. And we know engagement is so critical. So if we're not asking questions, that becomes a real problem. So rather than just asking a bunch of questions, it's really key to understand why you're asking. What's my purpose for asking? So you could be to understand, to assess, to innovate, and to motivate, right? So there are lots of different questions under that. So I don't want to make sure I understand where this person's coming from. Do I want to assess their performance or their concerns? Do I want to help them come up with new ideas? Do I want to try to motivate them? So think about how you're asking those questions, because and then when you ask, make sure you listen. Don't ask if you're not going to listen, because that just creates cynicism, and we don't want or need that, right? So ask, be silent. I'm not great at this. I have to kind of count to 10 in my head. I ask them a question. I have this bad habit. Somebody goes, oh, what I meant to say was, I'm like, well, you don't restate it. They heard you. Just be quiet and let them respond. Let people reflect a little bit. All right. So asking questions is absolutely critical. In the book, we have a whole series of questions and stuff on this. I'll send out a link to the blog that has a bunch of things, but the key thing is to be purposeful with your questions, to make sure what your objective is first. Okay. The next habit is to involve. All right. So we'll talk about coaching here, right? So we have to move up this coaching period we have to move down this coaching period to coach up. So if you look at this coaching pyramid, you only remember like 10% of what you read, and you can see how it increases as you go on down. So we really have to involve people in our coaching. We really have to involve them. And so it might, instead of just saying, hey, here's the new policy, go this, here's the new procedure, go do that. It's like, hey, here's a new procedure. Why don't you read it and tell me what you think about it, and tell me if it makes sense to you after lunch. Now I've gone from giving someone something they read that's only a 10% chance they'll remember it. Now they're going to read it, interpret it, and say it back to me. Now we're down to 70%. I've much improved the effectiveness of my coaching, and much increased the chances that I don't have to re-coach. Re-coaching is a pain. We see leaders do this all the time. Lee, I've been telling this guy to do this all the time. He's just not getting it. And I was like, he's doing the same thing. He's staying up here at this higher level, just giving him stuff to read. And I'm like, well, I guarantee if you do that, you're going to be doing the same thing next week. So this, again, is a pay me now or pay me later thing. So involve people in your coaching so that they can get it. Your job as a leader is to help them master their task and master their job. And that's what they want. So you have to really involve them to do that. So let's go on to measure. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about this from my own perspective. At our house, we have a ping pong table out in this playroom. It overlooks from the kitchen, the family room, and it's fun. And so, if I'm helping out, cleaning up at a party, I could see the kids playing ping pong down there, and I could tell if they're keeping score or not, right? So it's like, but boom, boom, boom. I kind of see the rhythm of the game, but boom, but boom, but boom. But then as soon as they start keeping score, it's like bam, 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 bam. I could see their eyes, they're crouching down, their eyes are wide open. I could hear the game. I could hear and see the rhythm of the game better. When people are keeping score, they're more intense, they're more focused. You know why? Because people want to win. So it's really critical for our team that we do keep score. I know you know that, but sometimes we get caught up in the complexity of it. Well, we just got this new SAP system. It doesn't feed into our GL, and we get the report a month later. Forget that. Go old school. Get a whiteboard. Get something you could share, post-it note you could share on your digital screens to say, here's how many calls we have to make this week. Here's how many proposals. Here's how many customers we could have to take care of. All right, Max, you did this many. Christina, you did this many. Lee, you did this many. Keep score. Then all of a sudden, Lee's saying, gee, Max is killing it this week. I'm not doing so good. Naturally, I want to win. I'm going to elevate my game. So don't overcomplicate. I don't care if it's a jelly bean jar, a whiteboard, a little red, yellow, green scorecard, kind of a, your stoplight scorecard, anything it takes to keep it simple. It has to be relevant and influenceable. Don't reuse that word. I just made it up, but you get what I mean. I have to influence it. If I'm on the front lines, I don't care about EBITDA for the company. I care about how many calls I need to make, how many issues I need to resolve, how many invoices I need to process, how many proposals I need to review. Right? So make sure we're getting a relevant, influenceable scorecard and just go old school with it. You can get fancy later, but it has great power. If I can go up and go, oh, I just made another call. Boom, I'm going to check it off. Oh, I'm catching up to Max now. I feel good about that. Great power in that. People do want to win. Take advantage of that basic human dynamic and leverage that with your measurement. So, and there was no slide on that one. So I was just talking about that one. So it's okay. We're not behind. So the next, I'm going to talk about just the last one is the last need. So we've talked about explain, ask, involve, measure, and appreciate. And so we're going to talk about appreciate here. I'm just going to share this study with you from the Gallup organization that found that the most effective work groups have at least a 3-to-1 ratio of positive to negative interactions. The same study found on the home front in marriages, the most effective marriages have at least a 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative interactions. So for all of you there that are married or in significant relationships, we know we elevate our game on the home front. And that's back to what we talked about before. Our mind kind of has a bias toward the negative in a way, so we have to really overcome that. So we need to make sure that one negative requires a few positives. So think about it for your team. What do you think the ratio is for your team? 3-to-1, 5-to-1, 10-to-1, doesn't matter. But here's the good news. I've done a lot of research about this and tons of research, and I've never found any research, anybody anywhere that has ever felt overappreciated. So your ratio could be 10-to-1 or 20-to-1. That's great. So demonstrating your appreciation for someone is a great way to have a positive interaction, as long as it's sincere and meaningful. All right. Make sure it's sincere. Don't go back and go, oh, I just heard this guy talk about, I need to appreciate you. Hey, nice jacket, buddy. It's not about that. Something sincere. And it's not just about their performance. It's about the person. I love the way you do that. I know you're juggling a lot at home and you're still getting that done. I love the way you go serve the needy on the weekends. I love the way you're involved in this. I love your integrity with your family. All those things build people up. My wife's great at this. She'll be walking around on the street and our kids used to get just mortified. She'd walk past someone on the street and a stranger and go, oh, that dress looks really beautiful on you. And our kids go, Mom, you don't even know that lady. That's like, oh, don't say. And Julie's wonderful. She just said, you know what? The next time that happens, kids, don't look at me, watch the other person. And of course, you know the story. That person lights up. Who doesn't want to feel appreciated? Who doesn't want to feel recognized? Who doesn't want a nice, sincere compliment? So think about that with your team. If you want discretionary effort from your team, figure out a way to elevate your ratio of positive to negative interactions. Find some way to demonstrate your appreciation for them. We talked about the yellow car phenomenon earlier. Make finding your people doing something right your yellow car. I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to find one thing that everyone on my team is doing right every day, and I'm going to find a way to acknowledge them for that. It could be something they're performing, something they're doing, could be, or just about who they are. It's so easy. You'll be embarrassed because there are so many good things going on. So again, explain, ask, involve, measure, and appreciate. If we combine those positive coaching habits, again, no scripts or anything, just leverage the natural human dynamic and the needs of the people around you. Couple that with your positive coaching mindset, which takes some time to kind of do some work around that, all right? We need to kind of bring that to the table. We'll develop these positive relationships and results that we need, right? So again, just wanted to summarize those for you here. So let me just wrap up, and before we go into a Q&A, and just kind of share this process, because we're talking about habits here, right? And so I'll just ask you, just rhetorically, how far do you think a lunar voyage is? Sometimes I'll hear people say, how far, they'll give me miles. Some people will give me weeks. Fact is, it's about 250,000 miles each way, 497,000 miles round trip. But what's amazing about that journey is that 95% of the effort is expelled in the first few seconds, like getting a huge hunk of metal pushed off the ground and then pushing through the Earth's atmosphere, and then it's smooth sailing, right? That's easy, right? And that's just the same journey of creating a new habit. So I wanted to encourage you. Some of these things might be new for you. You're going to try some of these new habits. I encourage you to try one at a time, and it's going to feel awkward at first. You're going to have the gravitational pull of your old habits pulling back. If asking is one of the new habits and you used to just telling your employees what to do, it's going to feel, you're going to want to say, man, I know the answer. I just want to tell them. It's going to resist that, replace that with asking, and it's going to feel awkward at first. Practice it. And then over time, you'll push through the atmosphere, that gravitational pull of your old habits, and then it's smooth sailing. You know the old saying, first we form our habits, then our habits form us. It's a very conscious effort at first, then it's just unconscious, we do it. But don't take on too much. If we try 3 or 4 things at a time, find one thing that maybe we spoke about today, that one little behavior, one little maybe mindset shift you want to focus on, and spend the time turning that into a habit. Contrary to what you hear about, like it takes 28 days of habit, it really all depends. It just takes a lot of repeated energy. You'll know it when you don't have to think about it anymore, okay? So before we take questions, I just wanted to invite you guys to feel free. We have lots of free resources on our site. You could just text the word leadership to 33777. That's 33777. And you'll get every Tuesday and Friday just some insights, some leadership insights about healthy growth on Tuesdays, and some encouragement for healthy growth on Fridays, straight to your inbox. So with that, Max, I'd like to just wrap up and then see if we have any questions, general, specific questions. I'm here for you. Would love to be able to answer them, and spend time doing that now, folks, before we wrap up.
Yeah, Lee, we do have a handful of questions. So first, I'd like to get out there, just because you just posted this up. There's so many different coaching books that are out there.
Yeah.
Why power of positive coaching? What do people want? What is going to resonate with everybody?
Yeah. Well, it's written by this really cool guy. No, just joking. So we think we try to understand the latest research and understand human dynamics. I'm a pretty simple-minded guy. So we try to take complex problems of engagement and execution and coaching and attitude and just simplify them so people could take action. So again, you're not going to find lots of scripts or charts and all this kind of stuff going on. We just try to simplify and say, this is just leverage human dynamics. It's almost like leadership jujitsu, right? So we're leveraging the natural dynamics there. So it's a very simple, easy read with examples and lots of tools in them. We're a very tool-based company. So we just want to make sure we're giving tools. Our job, my mission in life is to equip and encourage leaders. That's all we try to do for healthy growth. So we think it's a real easy read, and we think it's something that will apply not just to your business setting, but to your personal life also. Because if you think about simple truths are timely and timeless, and they tend to apply across different situations. So I think the natural dynamics you'll learn about and the science in the book, but also the practical tools you'll get can not only help you be a better leader, but hopefully a better spouse, a better parent, a better everything. That's what we'd say.
Awesome. Makes sense. So another one came in is, what's the best way to cultivate these positive coaching habits? Is it like setting reminders, holding each other accountable?
Yeah. I think your personal systems are key to this. So for example, we have a client that wasn't very good at appreciating his people. we said, hey, that's okay. No big deal. It's not everybody's gift. Let's just use our technology. Put an Outlook reminder every Friday morning and just say, who did you appreciate this week? We started doing that. After a while, he's like, okay, I got it down now. Like the reminder's there, I've got it down. So you use whatever tricks and tools. Sometimes you might need an accountability partner on some of these. I think it's important also to engage your team. Tell them, guys, I'm working on this one. I'm working on asking questions better. So if I'm not, and if you feel like I'm steamrolling you, please say so. So I think being overt and a little bit vulnerable about these are the things I'm working on engages your team, but also being smart about using personal systems of anything that works for you to start doing it a little more consistently. And I'd encourage you, don't beat yourself up. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect every time, but as always step back and say, is my trend line a positive trend line? That's all we want. It's really going to look like an EKG. I did good today, not so good yesterday. Good, up and down. But if the trend line's good, that's what we're interested in for real change.
Yep. So Aaron also had a question that is your comments on strength coaching results versus weakness coaching makes a lot of sense. But there are times when our team, our people need to strengthen a weakness for success.
Right. That's right.
Thoughts on positive approach to weakness coaching?
Very, very good. And I didn't mean to sound kind of Pollyanna about that, like ignore weaknesses. I just, in the spirit of time, I was trying to get through that. But it's good. It's a great clarification. So listen, sometimes our weaknesses, if they get in the way of performing our job effectively, we've got to work on them. But if you're just like trying to help someone, hey, Lee, you're not very organized. We need you to be more organized. But if I'm organized enough to get my job done, but it's not my strength, it's probably never going to become a hallmark strength of mine. So I think sometimes we're just obligated to, we look at weaknesses. We want to just, we feel obligated as a leader. We need to help someone improve their weaknesses. If they're relevant to the job, yes. If they're not, no. And focus on their strengths. Your return on investment is much better. So if there's a weakness that we do really need to improve on the job, I think first of all is you got to create the case. Like, why is it important to you to improve this weakness? It'll help you get your job done. You'll get honestly, let's talk about it. You'll get a better raise. You'll have more chance to promotion. It'll be limiting if you don't improve this. I think it's important before you get into the coaching, state the case for people. Here's why we're doing that. And then there are a million different ways of coaching people, but you also have to understand what are their preferred ways of learning. Like, are they kind of kinesthetic? They like to touch and feel. Can you just tell them and they get it? Do they like to see things? So understanding that person and how they like to learn and then working with them. Many times as a leader, I get out of the middle and say, you know what, Max, Christina's really good at this and you struggle with it. Why don't you get together and see her best practices and then we'll come back and talk about it. So as the leader, sometimes we think we need to be the hub to all the different spokes on our team and our coaching. But many times on your team, you probably have people that do things well or best practice in various areas. Leverage that and create some peer coaching going on. You don't necessarily have to be at the middle of it. And many times, just like a parent, we listen better to our friend than we do our leader. So that might just be a simple kind of a pivot in the approach that might help also.
Makes a lot of sense. So somebody had a question that was, are there professional coaching certification programs that for those that want to learn more practical skills of coaching that you may recommend?
Sure. There's International Coaching Federation. There's so many of them. There's like a proliferation because this field has just become huge. So everyone and their brother is getting into it, right? I'll be honest with you. I myself, I'm a Ph.D. in organizational psychology. I've been coaching people for years. That's what I feel like I was born to do. I don't even have a certification. I just try to understand the human dynamic. But for other people that maybe don't have the background that I have, they want to get one of these. If you just Google professional coaching certification, you'll get a bunch of them. But I know UCF is one of them. What did I just call it? The Coaching Federation, Universal Coaching Federation, United Coaching Federation, some kind of coaching federation. There are several of them out there that do that. And if it's something you really want to pursue, I think it's great to pursue. Yeah. But I would say this, unless you're doing it as a consultant, I would say this kind of approach that we're offering you to just elevate your coaching game. If you just want to become a better coach, the Power Positive Coaching and the book, I'm not trying to sell the book. Heck, I'll give you all the tools. I don't care. you don't need much more than that to really significantly elevate your coaching game versus understanding all the kind of technicalities of coaching and all that. If you want to branch out on your own and do something, that's something to consider. But if you're just trying to improve yourself to become a better leader and a better coach for your organization, kind of following up on some of these coaching tools we shared would get you a long way there.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron put a comment in the chat. I think it's
there we go. International. Thank you. Yeah, it's the
International
International Coaching Federation. I don't know why I was saying universal. ICF. Yes. Thank you for clarifying that. I've had about 3 of them in my mind that I was combining all their acronyms.
I like his other post too. He was just making a comment that he highly recommends volunteering in youth coaching or mentoring of youth to expand kind of professional coaching. Working in youth sports is very similar to the workplace.
It really is. It's a very similar dynamic. If you think about a football coach, like I've got to explain our game plan. I've got to ask my team if they have any questions. I've got to involve them in putting the plays together. I've got to measure whether are we winning, are we scoring, and I've got to appreciate them. I mean, I'll put it this way: an effective coach, a positive coach, if you look at them on the sports field, is really doing the same, engaging in the same behaviors that you would in the workplace. Yeah. So good point.
Awesome. Well, this is going to be our last question, Lee. What are some books that are on your reading list?
Yeah, I like the one I like right now is by Adam Grant. You're probably familiar with him. He's got a book called Think Again, and it questions our own thinking. It just says if you really think about your thinking, our own thinking by nature is biased. So it's thinking about our own thinking. It's called Think Again. That's kind of one of my new one right now. But I'm a big podcaster, so I do a lot of podcasts too. But that one I would recommend for people, and it kind of ties into the thoughts process we were talking about earlier.
Awesome. Any podcasts come to mind, right?
Yeah, I like Adam Grant's podcast. I like how I built this from NPR. I like NPR radio stuff that kind of incorporates NPR TED Talks. They incorporate TED Talks and they're kind of around themes. So they'll kind of bring several TED Talks together to talk about a common theme. So those are a few of my favorites, like to listen to while I'm running or walking or whatever.
Very good. Well, I just want to say thank you, Lee, for sharing today.
My pleasure.
I want to thank everybody that attended. Remind everybody that the recording of this session will be available at theimprovingedge.com. Also, as a reminder, registration is still open for any of the remaining talks. So we hope we see you guys at another one. Have a great rest of your day. And again, thanks, Lee.
Sure. Thank you. Bye-bye, folks.